Hello and welcome back to the GPLaps channel, here for another test drive video, where today we'll be looking at the Chaparral 2F. Chaparral 2F was the 1967 competitor from Chaparral. Cars, of course, famously created by Jim Hall, the famous designer, and this was an impressive car, one that really changed things in history. The car itself was extremely powerful. It was a 7-liter engine, a 7-liter 16-valve V8 Chevy engine, and turned over 500 horsepower. So it was an extremely powerful engine, probably a lot more powerful than all the Grand Prix cars of the time. And the amazing thing was the whole car itself only weighed 1,700 pounds, which is markedly less than the rest of the 67 sports car competition, and honestly not that much more than Grand Prix cars of the time. I think the Honda RA300, which was one of the heavier cars, not the heaviest, but one of the heavier Grand Prix cars, was about 500 pounds less than this, but a lot less power. So this car itself is extremely impressive, weighing a lot less than the rest of the competition, put it miles ahead. But those weren't even the biggest things and the most important things about this car. A lot of it came into play with the aerodynamics of the car, and as you can see, the huge wing on top, looking rather crude from today's standards, but absolutely state-of-the-art at the time. This was, I believe, if not the first, one of the very first wings ever on a race car, with the purposes of creating downforce. And you see it sits so far back on the car, and my first reaction was the car's going to understeer like crazy, but they thought of that, and actually in the front of the car, which you can't really see too well, but there's a spring-loaded flap that opens up as the car approaches high speeds. I think between 120 and 140 miles an hour, that flap will open up and help create downforce in the front of the car. So if you're thinking about that, 1967 Grand Prix cars themselves didn't get wings until, partway through the 1968 season. So this car is more than a year ahead. I think Chaparral actually might have run wings on their 66 Can-Am cars. And so it's extremely impressive what they're able to do. The drivetrain itself was a 3-speed gearbox, but it's semi-automatic. It's written as automatic in a lot of places. You still need to use a H-pattern shifter or the shifter that was in the car to actually move the gears, but there's no clutch required, and that's very important because your left foot is actually used to change the angle on the wing. And that's correct. In 1967, they essentially had what is today kind of like DRS, but to adjust the angle of the wing, so going down a straightaway, you could hold that wing nice and flat, create less drag, and then popping into a corner, you can let the wing angle rise up, help slow the car down, hold it to the circuit. And so all of this extremely impressive. I know there's several other things that changed with this car. The 2F was part of an evolution of lots of Chaparral cars in the 2 line. I think went all the way up to like 2J or even further than that. But this car itself might have been the pinnacle. At the end of the 1967 season, the FIA or whoever was governing the World Sports Car Championship at the time changed the regulations to allow 3-liter max engines, and I think at that point Chaparral really just got out of racing there, raced Can-Am after that, ended up doing IndyCar and kart, and won the Indy 500 and everything. So lots of great stuff from them after that, but this was really the pinnacle of their World Sports Car Championship cars. The 67 season didn't go great on paper. The car itself retired from every single race except one. All of the races in the beginning of the season, the car retired, mostly due to the gearbox and having issues with that automatic gearbox. Some say that if they had actually spent some time, or maybe just did a more conventional gearbox, that they could have had great results because they were fast everywhere, qualifying near the front, racing near the front. But the gearbox and other drivetrain related problems put them out everywhere. But that wasn't Chaparral's way. They were all about innovation, and something that was really lost. It's been lost over time, for better or for worse. Times change, but this car itself, hugely impressive. The one race it didn't retire from, the last race of the season at Brands Hatch, the BOAC International 500, the car won. Phil Hill, Mike Spence drove the car to a victory there, and it was actually Phil Hill's final race in his whole career. He had obviously raced in F1 before then and lots of other racing, but he went out on top with the final race at Brands Hatch in this car. So it's a great history and really impressive car to look at and read about, but how is it to drive? And a few things in Grand Prix Legends have been done to make this one really special. So this car was recently re-released with the new sports car extra mod. Originally came out with the sports car mod, but now it's been re-released with that. And the awesome feature that was added in was the ability for you to adjust the wing while you're racing, exactly like the real car did. And so you're able to actually change the angle of the wing and go faster. It's actually done through mapping a button and everything to do it, and mapping it to your clutch pedal, since you don't need a clutch in this car. Makes it as realistic as possible so that as you're going down a straightaway, you can press that clutch and the wing flattens out and you go faster. But rather than have me explain it, why don't I show you how it works? So here we are rocketing around the Daytona International Speedway. Getting a little light out of turn 4 there. We're on the oval configuration of the circuit because I want to show you how this wing works. I've got the foot cam ready to show you, but we're traveling about 177, 78 miles an hour coming into turn 1 here. We'll come through turns 1 and 2 and rocket down the back straightaway. And so the wing is in full deploy right now, or full downforce mode, helping us corner but slowing us down. And so if we push our pedal down, our clutch pedal, see the speed rocketing up, 180, 182, 3, 4, 5, rocketing down the back straightaway. We might hit 190 before turn 3, 191. I'm gonna duck out of the pedal, the car slowing down, but a lot more downforce to get us through the corner, back down to 175. So the wing really does speed up the car, and something really fun and tricky to think about. I'll put it down again, so we'll rocket through the front straightaway. We're gonna cross the line here at 185, 186 miles an hour. Really brings a new dimension into racing, and especially in Grand Prix Legends, where all of the cars behave, somewhat the same as far as driving configuration goes. Having to actually learn how to drive differently is really tough. It's so difficult to not want to use that clutch when I'm shifting and rather use it for speed and pressing it down while I'm full throttle as well. Easy at a track like this, a little more challenging when you're actually racing around a circuit. But 194 miles an hour down the back straightaway here at Daytona really speeds up the car. You really can't get above 180 or so without it. And so, very interesting. Amazing that the developers of this mod were able to do something like this for this mod. So here we are back at Riverside. We'll put it into first gear and roll out of the pits. Tempting to try to step on that clutch as we get away, but automatic gearbox wouldn't have to. I think in the real car you might have had to press down on the breaker or something similar to engage first gear while stopped. But other than that, fully automatic as far as the clutch goes. We'll just lift off the throttle there to shift it into second gear. And we'll make our way around some of the S's on our outlap. Really tricky to learn how to do this differently, like I mentioned, to switch from using that left foot to do the clutch to actually going over and using it to press a wing down. I can definitely use my brain to switch between left foot and right foot braking for cars that don't need a clutch at all, but for a car that you're still using that pedal, it definitely is a new thing to learn, and something I really haven't experienced in any other sim, is using your foot for something other than gas brake or clutch. So the car itself, really amazing. Must have been tricky for those real drivers to get used to doing something a little bit different, but that's what drivers are good at. It's a shame, obviously, the car, as I wave there to the crowd by accident, but it's a shame the car had so many mechanical issues, but really, if you're on the bleeding edge like Chaparral was, you're going to have those types of issues with cars. So it's really part of pushing things forward. And as I slide a little out wide here as the tires need to get up to temp, Chaparral was all about pushing that envelope and moving things forward. his innovation here with the wing on the car really brought and ushered forward that aerodynamic age. I can't imagine that Lotus and the other F1 teams that started using wings and aerodynamic devices didn't see this and say, hey, that would be great on our cars in F1. Especially looking at some of the early attempts at wings, looked very, very similar to what we see here on the Chaparral. So it really changed things forever. For better, for worse, aerodynamics became a part of auto racing for real. So I'll do a couple warm-up laps here and then come back to you with a flyer. So coming around turn 9 here at Riverside, we'll get the car angled right, coming out a little wide onto the front straight though, wing down, wing deployed. As we rocket towards the first corner, we'll dip off of that, tap the brakes, wing back down, car getting a little light over the hump there, as now we'll work towards the S's, brake down into second gear, keep it in second, not braking into first, put down the wing again here for a second, back on the brakes as we struggle through the S's, throwing the car side to side, but lots of grip in this one, down into first gear as we get towards the tight right hand, turn 6. Try to get that throttle down and wing down, lots of oversteer with less downforce, but rocketing towards now turn number 7, and we'll get off the wing onto the brakes, down into first gear, probably over revving a little bit there, keeping it tight though. We're on a flyer, we don't need to worry about the reliability here. Wing down as we try to accelerate out of the corner, car breaking loose a little bit. And now rocketing towards the tricky turn 8, we'll get off the wing onto the brake a little early, down into first gear, try to keep it nice and tidy and set ourselves up for the fast back straightaway. Back down, put the wing on, and away we go up to second gear then, and we'll get third gear here for the only time on the circuit, down the back straightaway, shifting up to third, then down the hill, we'll bottom out just a little bit before the kink. Keep the wing flat for the kink, a little hairy, but it works. As now flicking through there, we'll spot our braking marker just past the 3 board, hard on the brakes, off the wing, trying to keep the car from sliding up the banking, but we'll get back on the throttle and close out the corner and lap here. Wing down again as we fly across the line. And absolutely so much fun. Really difficult to get your brain around how to drive like that with using that third pedal. It's really a unique experience, and I highly, highly recommend it. I don't think any other sim out there has this car, never mind has this car with the wing adjustable. I think a few games have this car, but none with the wing adjustable like that, and it is so much fun to do. Honestly, you know, it's kind of a lame analogy, but it's very similar to modern DRS on cars. Just happens to be a much older iteration of that. I know there's some racing series out there. I know some of the oval racing that I see here in the United States, some of the wings and stuff are movable and everything on cars, so it's technology that's out there, but to think it existed in the early or mid 60s, really 66, 67, is really impressive. Jim Hall and the whole Chaparral team did a really amazing job on this car, and as you might have noticed, there's a Texas license plate on the rear, meaning this car was street legal and registered, I believe, in Texas, where the team is from. And if not street legal, is definitely something they like to promote, that they were from Texas and proud of it. So the Chaparral was able to get around Riverside in 1 minute 42.30, which is, you know, quite a bit quicker, about 7/10 quicker than the Honda RA300 was. I think obviously this car just handles so much better than the RA300 did, but you know, is quite a bit heavier as well. Even though it's a light sports car, it is quite a bit heavier, so it's very amazing to see, and you have to think it's because of that downforce that that this car was so quick. But I hope you enjoyed this one. This was a really fun car to drive and do this video, something really fun to try out in Grand Prix Legends because it is so different. So I hope you liked it, but I'll see you again next time.